Hey, what's up you guys? You're watching Team APS, Paul here. So, in today's video, I'm going to share with you guys 5 things you should do before every Yu-Gi-Oh event. Whether that's a locals, whether that's a regional, YCS, whatever. These are tips that will just help you prepare, help you make the most of the event itself, not be worried about other things. So yeah, let's hop in. Number 1, and it is the most important to me, finish your deck. I think that in my own experiences, my friends' experiences, and experiences I've seen other people suffer, if you have not finished your deck before an event, it never goes well. A lot of people like to come into these events and just be like, oh, well, I'll just kind of decide what to run there, or, you know, like, I still need to get a few cards, and I'll get them at the event. I'll just pick them up that morning. Anytime you do that, it just never really works out well. You want to make sure that you have your deck finished. That is deck list, you know, like make sure your deck, what you're running is decided already. Your deck list like form has been filled out, you know, whether it's printed and like typed in or whatever, or, like you have that. And also make sure that you like actually have the cards on your person. Because if you don't, all this stuff will just go down the drain. If you don't have the physical cards, then you're going to be scrambling around trying to trade for them and end up overpaying for them, or you might not be able to find copies of them and then you have to replace them with some other random stuff, or, you know, run around begging people to borrow cards and all that stuff. It's like, oh, well, I didn't get to play because I couldn't get these last 3 or 4 cards I needed. Definitely, if you know an event is coming up, like you know this regional has been a thing for weeks and you're just planning for it, get the cards in advance, order them, trade for them, borrow them, whatever. But you don't want to find yourself, you know, at the morning of an event, you know, running around a venue trying to get cards. And then also you want to make sure that you have decided what your deck list is, right? Like you want to not be deciding on like 6 or 7 different tech cards for your deck. That needs to have been decided through the play testing, through the, you know, deck theory crafting and all that stuff. Because otherwise you'll make, you know, irrational decisions at the event. You'll be like, oh, well, maybe I'll just run this. I'm scared. I saw one person running ABC, so I think I really should just main deck this card. No, like you need to be confident. Confidence in your deck is really important. Oftentimes I'll watch these deck profiles where someone's like, I just threw this card in and I didn't see it all day, or every time I saw it, it was dead or whatever. And they kind of like use that as an excuse, but you need to have your deck list in mind, like before, you know, the event. And then the last part of this first tip is, of course, try to have the deck list form ready. Of course, you can pick up deck list forms at the event and fill them out. But if that's the case, then you want to do it as early as possible. No one wants to be the guy who's like in line at the last minute before registration, just trying to fill out a deck list with sloppy handwriting and a pen that's half working, and it's just a mess. Then you can end up getting like in trouble for like, you know, your writing being like not legible or whatever. They thought your 2 was a 1. You want to be prepared for all of this stuff. Number 2, playtest, playtest, playtest. Not enough people do this. I really don't think so. I found that every event I enter where I playtested in advance, I felt so much more prepared, so much more comfortable in matchups where I had playtested. It's really scary to not have any experience against a certain matchup, especially if it's one that your deck already struggles with to begin with. People will, you know, just kind of like go to these events on a whim and be like, oh, I don't really know how to play this deck, and I don't really know anything about it. And then they lose and they still complain. But I mean, if you playtest, then you'll be fine. And the thing about playtesting, I mean, playtesting isn't just hopping on YGO Pro and playing like 3 or 4 games. It's also not like playing one match with your best friend who plays a deck. It's finding lots of different people, forming a group, you know, really doing it like reps, like, you know what I mean? Like play against Pendulum Magicians like 10 times and then like reflect and be like, okay, so what do I need to change? What am I doing wrong? What am I doing right? Change cards, play like 10 more times. And this is stuff you should be doing for like days and weeks leading up to the event, not the night before. I mean, you know, that helps too, but like you don't want just to be doing this on a whim. You need to make sure that you have some kind of a schedule, a menu of how you play test and how you improve, because to not be at least somewhat familiar with matchups that will happen commonly, that's a problem. I mean, you know, Pendulum Magicians, you're gonna see that. Trick Stars, Dracos, you know, ABCs, Paleo, you should have played any of these decks multiple times before, know what they do, know how you counter it. That shouldn't really be a problem. Number 3, decide what you want to bring to the event in advance. This applies to locals and also to larger events where you travel. The thing is, you don't want to overpack for an event. I've always been a proponent of kind of pack light for events. You just want to use a small bag. You just want to have your playmat. You just want to have your deck box. It needs to only have the essentials. and maybe one binder if you're like there to trade. I far too often see people like carrying around, you know, these big luggage bags of just like bringing 3 or 4 binders just to locals or to like a regional, and they'll have like, you know, several decks built and a bunch of deck boxes, 2 or 3 different mats for some reason, all this stuff. You want to really just condense it. Make sure you know what you're bringing, because if you don't, you open yourself up to theft. And that's a really big problem in Yu-Gi-Oh! You know, people hate losing their cards, but don't make it easy, right? You don't want to have to tote around a big bag that you have to like unzip all this stuff and like, you know, like pull out like 3 binders and set them on the table and 3 deck boxes before you finally get to the deck that you're playing. That's a problem. That means that people are, they're gonna notice. They're gonna be like, oh wow, this guy's got like lots of stuff. It's easy for me to just take it. And they will. So you really want to make sure that you just kind of bring the bare essentials, decide what you need in advance, pack the night before. Trust me, nothing is worse than actually showing up to the event and realizing you forgot your deck box or your mat at home. That's a horrible feeling. It has happened to friends of mine. It has happened to me. You don't want that trouble. And you know, in addition to that, it probably is just a good thing to make sure you have like a trade list if you're gonna trade, right? Like, don't just sort of be like, oh, I'm just gonna look through a bunch of binders. Have a list of cards you're looking for. It makes your trading go by a lot faster, saves you time. Good practice. Number 4, study up. Really do study up. This is actually similar to playtesting, so maybe that could have been the same thing. But when I say study, I more mean like, you know, predict what you'll see. So make sure that you know what deck builds are topping right now, what deck you're most likely to play against. I guess today that might be Pendulum Magicians, but I mean, who knows? It could be anything. And by doing that, you will find yourself far more prepared when it comes to building your deck. You don't want to just go into an event and just kind of be like, well, whatever happens, happens. You want to have some kind of a leg up on the competition. What do you expect to face the most? Should you tech this card in your deck if it helps you against the most common deck? Or should you take it if it helps you against a deck you'll never see? Like, for example, you know, you see a lot of people who will main deck Anti-Spell Fragrance because it's so strong against Pendulum decks. But, you know, if Pendulum decks weren't the most popular deck of the format, maybe that wouldn't be such a good tech. But you wouldn't know any of that stuff unless you study. And I mean, studying can be like simpler than that. It can be like just knowing like what the most recent packs that have released are, you know, what the most recent cards. A card that's actually coming out soon, Called by the Grave, that like quick play spell that can stop hand traps and other like graveyard effects and stuff like that. That card is going to be coming out in a few weeks, and there are going to be people who actually didn't know it even released because they haven't been keeping up. You want to make sure you keep up with all these new product releases so you know what cards are legal. You know, like Link Karibo wasn't legal for a long time, but now it is. So you want to make sure you know all of that stuff before you go to an event. Do your homework. And tip 5 is take care of yourself first. This includes all of the usual stuff. Take a shower, wear deodorant, all that stuff. Get sleep. This is the biggest problem that I've ever had, especially recently. I've overslept for a lot of events, but you know, really and truly, you want to make sure that you take care of yourself first. Look out for number 1. Don't dress like trash, you know what I mean? Like, don't not take a shower, not brush your teeth, not wear deodorant, not comb your hair. Look decent. If you look better, you feel better. If you feel better, you play better. It's like, it's a pretty simple process. And you know, in addition to that, like if you don't have enough sleep, it doesn't matter how prepared you are because you'll be dead during the event. If you haven't eaten, then it doesn't matter how prepared you are because you'll be starving and you'll misplay because you can't focus. You have to like make sure that you're prepared for these events. I know a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh players will make up these, you know, crazy prophecies of their own where it's like, oh, I play better when I'm starving, or I play better when I haven't slept, or you know, like I don't eat during events. No, that generally speaking, you just shouldn't go by that type of stuff. You want to just have like healthy habits, come on. And you know, don't let like your stink be the thing that gets you kicked out of the venue or just distracts people, or that never should be the focus. The focus is to come and play Yu-Gi-Oh as best you can. So to that end, make sure that you have been accommodated for first. That's it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more Yu-Gi-Oh, and I'll see you guys in the next one.